Hello everyone, I am Snigdha Kakkad and this is my channel Accelerate AI Careers. Today I'm going to explain RAG Retriever Augmented Generation in a nutshell, like in a simplistic manner, so that when you are starting off in the field of generative AI or in the field of artificial intelligence for the first time, as a novice also you can understand it by the way I'm explaining it. Can be explained in difficult manners using a lot of jargons and terminologies, but that's not my intention here today. So I'll be explaining it in a very simple manner. So let's start. And this is a very easy diagram to understand drag. So I'll first start from here, which is our source. Now here I've shown a PDF symbol, but the documents could be of any format. They could be of a tabular format such as Microsoft Excel, databases, or they could be PDFs, Microsoft Word, presentations, any kind of transcribed files of your speech, or even speech. But if it is a speech, in that case, you need a transcriber to get that speech and transcribe it to text first. Or you need to use a multimodal LM which understands speech. Okay. So let's go to the next aspect. Once you have the document, you extract the data from that document, and that extracted data basically is passed on to Chunker. Now, there is nothing like Chunker. Basically, you are chunking your entire length document into small chunks, and there are various strategies of chunking. Howsoever good your chunking strategy is, that will determine what kind of responses you get. So your RAG's performance is very dependent upon what kind of chunking strategy you. Now, one kind of chunking strategy which you could use is fixed size chunking. That you choose, like, okay, I'll chunk my this document in 500 chunk size each, and I'll have an overlap of 150 chunks. So basically, you are having your text document split into 500 chunk size with 150 chunks of overlap between any two consecutive chunks, so that some context is retained between the two chunks. But there is another kind of chunking which is better, which is context aware chunking, in which you chunk your document based upon what kind of document it is. What kind of separators the document has, what kind of paragraph, what indentation the document has, what kind of structure the document has. And I would recommend going always with context aware chunking. The fixed size chunking is good when you are starting off in generative AI, but it will just be good for your college projects or university projects, but it will not do well or provide you good results with any kind of client projects or any kind of specialized projects you're trying to do. So when you do context aware chunking, you will ask me, what is this and what kind of chunking strategies are included in context aware chunking? So in context aware chunking, you can have recursive character splitting, in which you recursively or iteratively split your data into fixed chunks, even though they are fixed size chunks or similar sized chunks, but they have an overlap, and that iterative separation is decided based on the separators present within the document itself. So it's not like I will have chunks of size 500. It's not like that. You basically choose certain separators from the document. On those separators, you iteratively split your chunks from the document. There's another chunking you can do based on your document separators using sentence splitting. And it is possible to use NLTK library or Spacy Python library to do those kind of splits for you. Now, all these chunking strategies are in one or the other way inbuilt. Recursive character chunking also is a function which is available from LangChain you can use to do your splitting. But there are other custom chunking codes which you can write depending upon the structure of your document. Your document might have tables, graphs, images, as well as some text. So based on the structure of your document, you can do those chunkings, and you can write your own chunking function to ensure that there is an overlap between each paragraph. There's an overlap between each table on one page and a table continuing on the other page. So this includes all your chunking. Once you have chunked the document and you have your relevant chunks, before going ahead, you usually assess the performance of those chunks. Okay. So, but that is a later on concept I will explain in my future videos. How do you do that kind of evaluation? For now, after your chunks are ready, the next step is embedding. And here where embedding API is written, actually it's the simplistic manner I have mentioned that it's embedding API, but there are various embedding models such as Open Embedding Model. There is an ADA model from OpenAI. There is a text large model from OpenAI. There are sentence transformer models to do embedding. And then there are certain traditional models such as TF-IDF for embedding as well. Usually, the sparse embedding models such as a TF-IDF or Word2Vec, those models you use when lexical matching in your documentation is of importance. And it's not very useful here when you are doing a retriever augmented generation. And you usually use the other embedding, which is a sentence embedding, in which you use any kind of BERT-based embedding models or sentence BERT or OpenAI embeddings or Hugging Face embeddings, or you write your own embedding function to basically tokenize and embed your chunks so that they can be retrieved very easily. Because a computer is a machine, it will not understand your natural language. Similarly, your large language model is also a technical tool, right? So you basically embed your chunks first so that they can be retrieved using some kind of search strategy. So that's the intent behind it. Once your embedding has been done, you store those embeddings. So you can either store them in a vector DB. Vector DB is like a database. I'm sure you might have heard of databases, if not vector databases. So it's just a database to store vectors. So either you can use a vector DB, and some of the examples of vector DB are Chroma DB, FastDB, Pinecone. And then you can use Azure Index to also store indices. There is another way to store these embeddings, and it could be in a GraphDB. In GraphDB, you store knowledge graphs. So that's how you create a knowledge base of all the embeddings of all your chunks of the document. And these embeddings form the base in your stored vector store. These embeddings form the base for searching any answers relevant to your user's questions. Now come here, you are one of your these users. Say suppose I'm building an application for Ask HR, or I'm building an application for an HR assistant. In that case, this document which you have could be a benefits policy, or it could be a performance appraisal policy, or a promotion deck, right? That particular document has been split into chunks. Those chunks have been converted into a machine understandable manner, and those have been converted to embeddings using an embedding model. And then those embeddings which have been generated are stored in a vector store. In the form of now, you as an user, you as an employee of the company want to search what are my benefits regarding my dental plan. Easy question enough, right? But you have to scroll through a 50-page document to find that. Or you have to go to a HR to ask that. So instead of doing that, you want to search this application and get your answer quick away, right? So it's just one click away, you put in your query there. Now the embedding model which you have used here, the same embedding model is here. So it basically embeds your query using the same embedding model, generates the embedding, and then you can do a search. Now search is a very easy term to say, but there are different kind of searches. You have keyword search, you have hybrid search, you have vector search, you have semantic search. So one kind of search you can choose. I will go into details what kind of searches you can do, what is the difference between the searches, which search is better, which search is not that great, in which use cases. But I'll go at it in the future videos. For now, understand that you do some similarity matching between the embedded question and the embeddings you have from the document. And then this search is done using an LLM, and you get your answers. So you always provide, I need top 3 answers, or I need top 5 answers, or I need top K answers. So that is a parameter you provide. So suppose I say I need top 5 answers. So you get your 5 answers, and those answers are in a ranked format. So you have a re-ranking strategy as well. So based on that, your answers are ranked and shared with you. Now the large language model takes all those answers and then generates a summarized or synthesized a summarized answer out of those, so that that answer looks like a human might have gone through the documentation and fetched you the right answer after going through it, using their own sense of dental plan, using their own sense of what kind of information you're looking for. So similarly, large language model goes through all the information in the context and fetches you the right answer, synthesizes in a manner you can understand it, and then tells you, okay, $250 is covered in your rental plan for this particular thing. $1,000 is covered for this particular thing. And then the user gets his answers, and then user can further query. So he can ask the next question. And this entire process in the first half doesn't get repeated again and again unless you are unhappy with the chunking or you are unhappy with the embedding. This process done once remains as is, and your embeddings are stored in the vector store. until you have a new document to go through the entire pipeline. If the documents are the same and you have gone through this process once, your embeddings are in the vector store, you just keep on asking questions and you keep on getting answers. So several tools such as ChatGPT, for instance, their chat window, or Perplexity, or IBM's What's the Next .ai, or IBM's Consulting Advantage, all these technologies basically are based on this solution. There are modifications of this solution which are top notch or on top of it. This is a simplistic RAG I'm explaining to you, and with an example of an HR assistant. But this particular application has usage in several fields. So, like several finance assistants, mortgage assistants, hospitality assistants, even healthcare assistants are being complemented using RAG. Now, you will ask me, how are you so sure that RAG will give me good answer? Have you evaluated it? So when we particularly devise the RAG solution for a client, we have different evaluation strategies and evaluation metrics we use while we evaluate the performance of the solution before handing it over to the client. So we could use metrics such as Rouse score, we could use metrics such as Rouse N, Rouse 1, Rouse 2, but those are not 100% trustworthy, or accuracy is not 100% trustworthy as a metric. So we augment it with human evaluation as well. We conduct user testing and we get average ratings from it. Then we iteratively improve the performance of the model based on the user's feedback. Suppose you are the user. You asked about the dental plan. You got a partially correct answer, not a 100% accurate answer. And this application is in test phase. So then you will get a response from the LLM. Did I do well in your question? Did I provide you the relevant information? How would you rate me? And then on a 5-point scale, you will rate that LLM. You'll give a thumbs up or thumbs down. And you will be asked, why are you giving me this rating? Do you have any specifics? And then you can provide it some feedback. Whatever feedback you provide, that goes and gets stored in a PostgreSQL DB or some other database. And those feedbacks are monitored on a dashboard. And consecutively, the performance of the RAG is improved. So, my suggestion to you, if you're venturing in a field of AI or you just want to try out an LLM because you have heard a lot of hype about LLM in the last 1 year, and you're a software developer or you are a data analyst and you want to see how these LLMs actually work. And if you want to test it out, just pull API from Hugging Face for one of the open source models available, say a Llama 2 or Llama 3 or some mini model, and then create this functionality end to end on your local or maybe on your GCP. And if you stumble upon any errors or you notice some discrepancies in your performance there, you have issues with the junking, you can use embedding models from Hugging Face as well. You can ask them in the comments here and I'll be happy to help you out with it. Again, my intention here is to help you out transition in your journey in the field of AI, not necessarily become expert, but essentially become equipped enough to handle such queries which are being asked by companies these days. So if you have any specific interview questions you want to ask regarding RAG, if you want to ask any specific doubts regarding RAG and you have tried it out, it didn't work for you, let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to address it. And if you want to know more about RAG, I'll be posting more videos in this channel for sure. I also have a newsletter on LinkedIn called AI Scoop, which you can follow. It has already 13 editions there. So you can go through each element of RAG in those 13 editions. I think there is nothing more than that which you can cover in terms of theory or in terms of basic concepts behind RAG, which I have covered there. And if you're not very fond of reading and you don't want to go through extremely large papers and you find them so sleepy, so I can relate to you. So you don't need to do that. I'll be posting videos regarding this as well. Let me know in the comments how did you like it. Thank you.